Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Okay, friends, I want to welcome all of you here for this Sutta study class. And the Sutta we're covering tonight is the Maha-cattarisaka, which is number 117 in the Majjhima Nikaya. And I hope at least some of you were able to get the link and look over the sutta, but if not, then we're going to be, go over it now. Now, this sutta, the Maha-cattarisaka, the English translation is the Great 40. Now, that will be explained a little bit later or near the end of the sutta, what the actual this 40 number 40 refers to. But generally, the sutra is about, covering the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path and highlighting especially 3 of those 8 steps of the Eightfold Path as being the 3 pillars, as Bhante Gunaratana usually calls them, the 3 pillars of the Eightfold Path: right view, right effort, and right mindfulness. It also defines the right concentration. Now, normally when you read about right concentration in the standard definition, it says, basically it talks about abandoning the hindrances, entering the first jhana, and then the second, third, and the fourth jhanas. But this definition includes that, but it's a little bit a different kind of emphasis. So the Buddha gave this discourse in the deer park in Jeta's Grove in Savatthi. And he tells the bhikkhus, I shall teach you the noble right concentration with its supports and requisites. Listen and attend closely. And they said, yes, Venerable Sir. Then the Buddha is saying, and what, bhikkhus, is noble right concentration with its supports and requisites? That is the right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It says unification of mind, or often usually translated as concentration, but it's also translated as unification of mind. Actually, I prefer that translation better than just concentration. So unification of mind equipped with those 7 factors is called the noble right concentration with its supports and requisites. So, right concentration is the last step of the Eightfold Path, but all these previous 7 steps of the Eightfold Path, starting with the right view, are its supports and requisites. And that's what gives its meaning of samma samadhi, and being right concentration, as opposed to just ordinary concentration. As if a person just sits down and they just try to concentrate their mind, but without having those supports of the previous steps of the Eightfold Path, then it's what we'd call just ordinary concentration. It's not samma samadhi or right concentration. So this is important to understand. And then he says, the Buddha goes on and says, and right view comes first. And right view understands what is wrong view, and it understands what is right view. This is one's right view. Now, last week in the Sammaditthi Sutta, we also went over the sutta called Right View. Now, in that sutta, it was listing the right view as understanding what is the wholesome and the unwholesome, and understanding what is the root of the unwholesome and what is the root of the wholesome, meaning the 10 unskillful actions and their opposites, and understanding what are the 4 nutriments, the origin of nutriment, the cessation of nutriment, and the way leading to the cessation of nutriment, which is also the Eightfold Path, the way leading to the cessation of the unwholesome states, leading to the cessation of nutriment, and also the 4 Noble Truths. So right view is understanding what is the nutriment, what is the Noble Eightfold Path, and then it went through the 12 stages of dependent origination, understanding aging and death, and then birth, becoming, grasping and craving, and so on. Understanding the origin, the cessation, and the way leading to the cessation of all of those steps. But so this is a different formulation. So understanding what is wrong view and understanding what is right view, that is the right view. So all those things we talked about last week are also would be part of this right view also. And what monks is wrong view? So first he defines sort of wrong view. And so wrong view is basically not knowing Dhamma. Basically, it's believing that there's no effect of karma, that there's no results of doing good actions, there's no results of doing bad actions, there's no rebirth according to your karma, there's no this world or another world. In other words, they don't believe in, it's not believing in any type of rebirth, basically the ideal of nihilism, that when you're born, nothing you do in this life has any point or merit, and there's no accumulation of merit, and when you die, there's no rebirth, so therefore there's no reason to do any good or bad, or to do any good actions, or to accumulate merit. And basically believing in that nothing exists. There's no mother, no father, there's no recluses, there's no holy persons, there's no path to attain enlightenment. So it's not believing in any of those things. So that is a wrong view. So the right view understands this wrong view as being wrong, and it understands the right view as being right. Now, the right view has 2 aspects of right view. One of them is the right view that's affected by attachments and taints partaking of merit, and that basically is believing in karma and rebirth, and that there is good actions and bad actions, and the result of them, there is a path leading toward liberation and freedom. There are noble beings, and the possibility of attaining enlightenment, and basically just accepting there is this conditioned world, and so on. So that's what is called the right view affected by taints. That means it's the conditioned world. It's acknowledging that this conditioned world exists, but that's also part of the mundane right view. And right view is there's two types of Noble Eightfold Path. There's what is called the mundane Noble Eightfold Path and the supramundane Noble Eightfold Path. And the mundane Eightfold Path is what is practiced by the ordinary person. And anybody who has not yet reached the level of a Sotapanna, they are practicing the mundane Noble Eightfold Path, because they have not yet even acquired the right view. In other words, they haven't entered the stream and attained the real right view. And we have to also understand that there's 3 levels of understanding. So right view is also called right understanding. And right understanding has 3 levels to it. I think I've mentioned this in some previous talks. There's the intellectual understanding of the teaching. So, you can read about the 4 Noble Truths. You can read about the Noble Eightfold Path, the factors of enlightenment, and understand that kind of intellectually. But it helps you to at least begin to practice meditation, and it stimulates your interest and effort to want to practice. But there isn't any yet deep realization, so it's primarily kind of intellectual understanding. And that's called the Sutra Maya Panya. So let's say like reading suttas. So you're studying these sutras, and if it's the first time you've heard them, or, a lot of people, it sounds intellectual, so many lists of things, the 5 this, and the 8 this, and the 4 of these, and so many lists. So a lot of people think that sounds a lot, intellectual. And it is in the beginning. But as you go on practicing then and start observing in your own mind how greed, hatred, and delusion is working within your own mind, and gaining a little bit of some concentration, you're able to see a little bit more clearly, or your understanding gets a little bit more clear how, how the process of karma is working. You can see the results of your thoughts or speech, and the immediate results of, and so on. And you can see, suffering a little bit more clearly, the mental suffering, physical suffering. So that's called the level of wisdom that comes from reflection and comes from initial meditation. But it still hasn't gotten to the level of, let's say, deep, profound insights. So that first level of wisdom is, largely what the mundane Eightfold Path. Most people are practicing this mundane Eightfold Path with their intellectual wisdom, and then they start meditating. But until they reach the stage of the Sotapanna, it still remains mundane. Even though you got insights, you have a certain amount of insights, you develop some level of mindfulness and concentration, but it may not have accumulated yet to the point of you entering the stream or having the first clear glimpse of emptiness or nibbana. So, and so coming back to the right view, that there's the right view that's affected by taints, and then there's the right view that's noble or taintless or supramundane, which is the factor of the path. So here it's mentioning clearly that the two levels of right view are the mundane right view and then the supramundane right view that starts with the attainment of the Sotapanna and gets deeper and deeper with each stage of once returning, never returning, and then with the Arahant. And so these are the levels that are being sort of talked about in this sutta. So the right view that is noble, supramundane, because it has that, it's destroyed the three fetters of personality, belief, attachment to rites and rituals, and doubts, and has weakened a lot of the negative, unwholesome conditionings in the mind. Not all, certainly not all of them, but a certain amount. At least they're not so strong. So, so the right view, as we mentioned, that's affected by the taints is believing that, again, that there is karma and, the mundane sort of right view. And so having defined that, what is wrong view and what is right view, then one makes an effort to abandon wrong view and to enter upon the right view. So one is making the effort. That means as you're practicing the Dhamma, you make the effort to meditate, to increase your mindfulness, your concentration, your spiritual powers. And at a certain point, when you attain the stream entry, that is entering upon the right view. And so that's the right effort. So this is the second of those three pillars. The first pillar is the right view understands what is wrong view, and it understands what is right view. And then the effort to abandon wrong view and to cultivate the right view, that is the right effort. And then to mindfully abandon the wrong view and mindfully enter the right view, that is the right mindfulness. So this is where those three factors of the Eightfold Path, right view, right effort, and right mindfulness, these are the three that keep getting repeated with each of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path. And so these three states run and circle around right view, that is right view, right effort, and right mindfulness. Now, this whole process is repeated for each of the following steps of the Eightfold Path. So I'm just going to, again, read some of them just to kind of reinforce that process in the mind. So now it's talking about right thought or right intention. Now, when you read different translations of suttas, for the Noble Eightfold Path, sometimes it's translated as right thought, that's samma sankappa, or right intention. But I personally like to just use the translation as right thought, but either one, right thought or right intention. And it has three aspects. That means the thought of renunciation, and the thought of, or the wrong intention is in, or wrong thought is the thought of sensual desires, thinking about desire and craving and all the things that you want to get. And so sensual thoughts about sensual desires. And the thought of ill will and the thought of cruelty. So these, or the intention to be cruel, the intention to be ill will, the intention to go out and crave and get your sensual desires. And that is called wrong intention. So right intention is the opposite of wrong intention. That means right intention means the intention for letting go and decreasing sensual desire and renunciation. That means giving up that craving and attachment to so many sensual desires, especially the ones that cause negative and unwholesome karma. And then the thought of non-ill will basically is like the thought of metta. So instead of having ill will for people, you cultivate metta, wishing that all beings could be well and happy, free from suffering. And then the third right thought is the thought of non-cruelty or compassion, not wanting to harm other living beings, whether it's harming them through negative speech or harming them through physical actions or even your thoughts. So anyway, so to practice the right intention, again, right view comes first. So one understands wrong intention as wrong, and one understands right intention as right, as I just had been explaining. This is one's right view. It's the right view of what is right intention and wrong intention. And I've already defined those, what is right intention and wrong intention. And the right intention also has two levels to it. One that partakes of merit, or the mundane right intention, and then the intention that is the supramundane. That means only for those who have reached Sotapanna. So only the Sotapannas and above are practicing the supramundane levels of right view. And so one makes an effort to abandon wrong intention and to cultivate and enter upon right intention. Okay. So this is the right effort. The effort to abandon the, let's say you have an urge to want to tell a lie, for example. So there's an intention to tell a lie. So you have to make the effort, no, telling a lie is unwholesome karma. And it'll come back to me at some point. So you make the effort not to tell the lie, and you tell the truth instead. So that's how you apply the right effort, is the effort to abandon the unwholesome state or urges or intention for doing some unwholesome karma, breaking any of the precepts, and the intention to do the opposite of those wrong intentions, to practice the right intention, to tell the truth, to practice metta, to practice compassion. That is the right effort. And then you mindfully abandon the wrong effort or excuse me, you mindfully abandon the wrong intention. You abandon that urge to tell a lie, or the urge to maybe steal something, or the urge to do any of the other unwholesome acts. And to mindfully do the opposite, or the mindfully to enter into to cultivate the right intention. And so that is the right mindfulness. So again, these three circle around the intention, the right view, right effort, and right mindfulness. That's what allows you to successfully transform the negative intention or the wrong intention that brings suffering into the right intention that brings the happiness. And then it goes on to repeat the same formula for speech. So right view comes first. One understands wrong speech as wrong and right speech as being right. So what is wrong speech? It's telling lies, slandering and gossiping, others, malicious speech, harsh speech, using swear words and things like that, and frivolous speech. So it understands the wrong speech as being wrong in terms of the unwholesome karma. Again, the suffering and problems come when you practice those kinds of wrong speech, and it affects your mind in an unhealthy way. And so and the right speech is, of course, we already covered those, abstaining from lying, malicious speech, harsh speech, and useless speech or frivolous speech. So and right speech also has the two levels of the mundane right speech that's collects good karma by using gentle, kind words to people and things like that. You get the effects, the good karma effects of practicing right speech and telling the truth. But that's mundane. But nevertheless, it's good. Because again, only a Sotapanna and above would be practicing the supramundane right speech. And so you make the effort to abandon wrong speech and to cultivate right speech is the right effort. And mindfully letting go of those wrong speech and mindfully entering into right speech, that is the right mindfulness. Now, these things appear to be similar. So when you make the effort to abandon the wrong speech and to cultivate the right speech, naturally you're going to have mindfulness with it, but it means, let's say you are just, sort of talking and you're not meditating and whatever. Let's say you're getting in an argument with people and then you see some, you have to be mindful of wanting to, let's say, boast or wanting to be mindful of, getting angry and wanting to use some harsh speech. So that's what a mindfulness comes in. And then when you're mindful, then you also make the effort. So sometimes the mindfulness may come first and the effort comes second. But anyway, both, all three of those are working together. And sometimes it may appear that the effort comes first and the mindfulness comes second, or you're mindful first and then you make the effort to let go of that negative thought and to cultivate the wholesome one, or the wholesome speech. And so those three, again, right view, right effort, right mindfulness, circle around the right speech. And then again, for the right action. And what is right view comes first. And right view understands what is wrong action and what is right action. So wrong action is killing or injuring living beings, stealing, and sexual misconduct, hurting others through aggressive types of sensual craving. So that's the wrong action. And the right action is the opposite, abstaining from those unwholesome karmic actions. Or the opposite, instead of killing or harming, you protect and cherish life. And instead of stealing, you practice dana, giving. And instead of abusing others or sensual misconduct, you develop more tranquility and equanimity and contentment, rather than always going around, trying to satisfy your sensual passions. And it includes like getting addicted to things. It's not just sexual misconduct, but it's sensual misconduct. That means abusing any of the senses would be included in this kind of precept, like getting addicted to drugs, addicted to gambling, addicted to pornography, whatever it might be. Any type of addiction is an abuse of the senses that brings suffering to oneself and one's family and others, and painful consequences now as well as in the future. So, and so one mindfully, and the right effort or the right action also has so there's a wrong action and the right action. And it has the two levels of the mundane right action, which means actually, abstaining from those things, but the super mundane, where the mind is a little bit more purified. It doesn't take quite so much effort and so on to practice those things because of that attainment of those stages of being a sotapanna or above that. So those mundane right action and super mundane right action. And so those three, making the effort to abandon wrong action, cultivate right action, and then the mindfully abandoning the wrong action and entering into the right action, that is the right mindfulness. So without those three, right view, right effort, right mindfulness, then it will be very hard to really practice any of the other steps of the Eightfold Path. Now, so then he goes on to the same formula for the livelihood. One understands wrong livelihood is wrong, and right livelihood is the right. That is the right view. And what is wrong livelihood? Well, for lay people, it would be like, trading in alcohol and poisons and various vices, running gambling casinos, or, killing, having to slaughter animals and dealing in weapons and poisons. All these things that would break some of the other precepts. And so that is considered the wrong livelihood. The right livelihood is the opposite of that, abstaining from those types of professions or jobs which would cause you to cheat, steal, have to, be dishonest in businesses. And, we see that happening, telling lies about your products and deceiving people in order to sell more. And so trying to avoid having this kind of jobs, or especially, where you're contributing to vices of other people, and so on. So, and so there's two levels, the right livelihood of mundane right livelihood and the supramundane. So making the effort and then being mindful to abandon those, the wrong livelihood and cultivate the right livelihood. And now, after covering the livelihood, of course, after right livelihood and the standard definition of the Eightfold Path, right effort comes next. Now, right effort is already one of these pillars that we've been talking about. So we've already been practicing the right effort, up to this point. And so he changes course a little bit in the sutta. This is where it starts the beginning of the explanation of the Great 40. And then he says, monks, right view comes first. And how does right view come first? In one of right view, right intention arises. In one of right intention, right speech comes into being. In one of right speech, right action comes into being. In one of right action, right livelihood comes into being. In one of right livelihood, right effort comes into being. With right effort, right mindfulness comes into being. In one of right mindfulness, right concentration comes into being. And then it goes on to add two more. After right concentration, there's, with right concentration, in one of right concentration, right knowledge comes into being. And in one of right knowledge, right deliverance comes into being. And it says, thus, monks, the path of the disciple in a higher training possesses 8 factors, and the arhat produces 10 factors. So this is where it might get confusing if some of you had been reading the sutta, where he introduces right knowledge and right concentration as the 9th and 10th step of the path. So normally we talk about just the Eightfold Path, but for Sotapannas and above, they are starting to practice the Tenfold Path. That means the right knowledge comes with the attainment of Sotapanna, and then that knowledge deepens, and the right deliverance, because you're delivered from wrong view or the personality belief, you're delivered from the attachment to rites and rituals, and delivered from doubts. So that's a certain level of mental purification. So that's considered part of right knowledge, but it's not the maximum state. So the disciple in higher training actually possesses the 8 factors, the disciple in higher training refers to the Sotapanna, the once returner, and the never returner. And so they possess the 8 factors, but only the arhat possesses the 10 factors. So, I misread that. So only the arhat actually has the right knowledge, because it refers to the full knowledge of the Eightfold Path with the attainment of the state of the arhat, right knowledge, and right deliverance. That means the right deliverance being having totally severed the process of samsara and attained the full enlightenment. But so for the arhat, they have the the tenfold path. And again, he says, right view comes first. And how does right view come first? Wrong view is abolished. So one of right view, wrong view is abolished. Again, this is only for the Arahant who has right knowledge and right deliverance. So his supramundane right view, wrong view is abolished, and the many evil, unwholesome states that originate with wrong view, those are also abolished. So the Arahant basically has abolished or overcome all of the defilements connected with greed, hatred, and delusion. Has overcome all of the 10 unwholesome actions. And so that is, so with the right view, the wrong view is abolished, and the unwholesome states that originate with wrong view are abolished. So these are actually the beginning of the Great 40. But again, it may sound a little confusing, but hopefully it'll become clear. So then he goes through all of the Eightfold Path again, but this time from the supramundane point of view. So he went through the whole thing one time for the mundane aspects, and even for the Sotapanna, once returners and never returners. But then this last part is covering the tenfold path for the Arahant that has abolished all of the defilements. And so in one of right intention, wrong intention is abolished. And the unwholesome states that originate with wrong intention are abolished. And the wholesome states that originate with right intention come to fulfillment by development. And again, in one of right speech, wrong speech is abolished, and all the actions connected with wrong speech are abolished. And then with right actions, and he goes through the same with right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And even with in one of right mindfulness, wrong mindfulness is abolished. In one of right concentration, wrong concentration is abolished. In one of right knowledge, wrong knowledge is abolished. And in one of right deliverance, wrong deliverance is abolished. Now, this would refer to the Buddha's view on some of the other types of ascetics who believed that they had attained enlightenment and through just practicing kasina meditations and practicing just the jhanas. Some of these ascetics, because they could develop infinite light in their mind, they thought that was enlightenment. And some other types of views they had. And they thought that or even being born in the Brahma Loka, they thought that was the highest attainment, becoming a Maha-Brahma. But Buddha saw that even that was not the truth. That was wrong deliverance. So that's what it's referring to, because of the wrong concentration, people get into states that they think is enlightenment and release from samsara, but the Buddha saw it, and actually, in fact, it's not, because they hadn't gone sort of the extra step in developing what the Buddha considered to be the real right knowledge and right deliverance. But anyway, that could be debated and disputed by scholars and so on. But so So that's where the great 40 comes in. So he says there are 20 factors on the side of the wholesome and 20 factors on the side of the unwholesome. So there's the 10, again, this pertains to the Arhat only. The great 40 is only pertaining to the states of the Arhat, where the others would have less than the 40. So the 10 right path factors of the Arhat and the unwholesome states that arise with, and the wholesome states that arise with them, that equals 20. So right view and the wholesome states that arise with right view, that is 2. And then it goes through the rest of the 9, which makes 20 altogether. And then the 10 wrong factors, wrong view, right, wrong intention, wrong speech, and wrong deliverance. Those are the 10, plus the unwholesome states that come with each of those is another 10. So that is also 20. So that's how they get to the number of 40. Again, it is confusing. It took me a number of tries on studying this to then finally kind of see that too, or understand at least intellectually what it was talking about. So 20 unwholesome states are abandoned and 20 wholesome states are established, again, for the Arhat, because it includes the right knowledge, which is the knowledge of the path and the fruits, and the abolishing of all the fetters, the 10 fetters that I've mentioned at other places. I may mention again later on, but those 10 fetters holding the mind to the cycle of birth and death, those had been abolished. So the Arhat basically has 40 of those wholesome states. The Sotapannas, once returners and never returners, have less than that, probably between up to about 32 of those, or let's say. And worldlings, that means people who have not even attained Sotapanna. I'm sorry, but they have 0. People won't want to accept that, but according to the Sutta, until one reaches the supramundane view even of the Sotapanna and has actively destroyed the fetters, then it is not said to have totally developed a right view. So really the Arya Astanga Marga the term Arya refers to the supramundane, that the Aryan people who have attained those stages of sainthood, Sotapanna, and once return and never return, and the Arahant. Those are called the Aryan disciples. And so that's why it's called the Aryan Eightfold Path. So really, taking this as the definition of that, the Eightfold Path really starts with gaining that right view, a view of the Sotapanna. So up until that point, people are trying to practice the Eightfold Path. They're not actually standing on the Eightfold Path yet, but they're trying to. And so they're using all of those mundane factors of the Eightfold Path, hopefully to at some point to reach that. And then to finish the sutta, the Buddha is interesting. He just says, this Dhamma discourse on the Great 40 has been set rolling and cannot be stopped by any recluse or Brahmin or God or Mara or Brahma or anyone else in the world. And if any recluse or Brahmin thinks this Dhamma discourse on the Great 40 should be censored, that means they don't agree with it, they think it's hogwash or something, then there are legitimate deductions from their assertions, which would be grounds for censoring them. Anyway, it's a little bit maybe hard for you to understand that part of it too. But anyway, so he's saying that anybody with any right intelligence would understand that these right actions and right intentions are the truth, and there's reality behind them. So they wouldn't say, that's rubbish. So that's what the Buddha had explained to the monks, and the monks were happy and rejoiced in what the Buddha said. So again, it takes a number of readings of this sutta to kind of, understand it. But, the main thing is to understand that, right concentration, what's called samma samadhi, needs to be accompanied by those other factors of the path. It's not just sitting down and concentrating your mind and attaining absorbed concentration, but without having the support of right understanding and the other aspect, right mindfulness and effort. So to call it the right concentration, it needs the supports of those other aspects of the Eightfold Path. And those three pillars, that those are the main active parts that we practice. And we have to, and when that right view gets, those three levels of right view goes from just the intellectual level, then you have to struggle much harder to practice the right effort and the mindfulness, because it's just an intellectual knowledge. But once you've meditated and you've practiced a bit, and that right view comes to the reflective level, that means it's a little bit deeper now. It's not just intellectual, but you've gotten some insights through your meditation and through your practice of your mundane Eightfold Path. You've gotten certain insights. And so it makes the effort easier. Makes it easier to practice right effort, and your mindfulness as well. And so those things keep on circling around each other as you're practicing the mundane Eightfold Path, until finally the spiritual faculties are developed, the enlightenment factors, and you then reach those levels of enter the supramundane Eightfold Path, which now has the right view, supramundane right view. That means especially the view of the overcoming the personality belief, because that's one of the hardest things to overcome, is the belief and attachment to the sense of I and self, and the doubts that may come because of that. So now I want to let's see if there's any chats. If anybody had any questions about that, if you wanted to write them on the chats, let's look to see if there's I don't know, there's a question about, is Bhante muted? Could everybody hear me? I hope I didn't waste an hour talking that people couldn't hear me. Okay, so there's one question. What is deliverance? Deliverance means the being freed from the fetters. So deliverance means you're delivered from the 10 fetters, or you're delivered from the personality belief, the attachment to rites and rituals, and doubts. When you attain the stage of the Sotapanna, that's a certain level of right deliverance. It means you're delivered from those fetters. That means you're freed from the suffering and confusion that comes from having those fetters. They're like chains that are holding the mind to its wrong views. And then the succeeding stages of the once returner, you weaken greed and hatred, or sensual desire and ill will. You weaken it quite a lot. So you're delivered or freed from the burden of having this greed and hatred, which would cause you to do certain wrong actions. And then you get delivered from the rest of that greed and hatred when you reach the third stage, and then you're delivered from the subtler 5 higher fetters. So it takes some understanding of those 4 stages of enlightenment to understand what is this deliverance. But basically it means being delivered from successive levels of greed, hatred, and delusion, and the imprisonment of the mind that's imprisoned. By basically the average person is imprisoned by their own greed, hatred, and delusion. And we can see that clearly, especially certain people. They're so attached to their beliefs and their karmic conditionings that it's a bondage. So that's the meaning of deliverance in this sense. It says, repeat the difference between mundane and supramundane right action. Mundane right action is the right action that still has its karmic effects. But basically it means any action of somebody who's not the Sotapanna. And so again, this is important to understand that the supramundane path starts with the realization of the Sotapanna and the destruction of those 3 lower fetters. And so everything they do after that is supramundane right action, right speech, right livelihood, and so on, because it's freed from those 3 lower fetters. So that's what's important to remember. The qualification of supramundane means a person has had a glimpse, a true and full glimpse of Nibbana, even if it just lasted a few moments. That's a very powerful insight that would destroy the belief in a self and doubts and attachment to rites and rituals that I've already been explaining several times. So this next question, the factor of renunciation and right intention is applied to lay people also. Lay people, the right and the factor of renunciation is one of the right thoughts. So yes, you're developing, you're renouncing, trying to renounce wrong thoughts and develop right thoughts. But it's not supramundane yet. It's still in the realm of the mundane. But yes, it's applied to lay people as well. Renunciation doesn't mean becoming a monk or nun. I like to define renunciation as lightening up or downsizing. That means to renounce. Like if you have a big house and your kids have gone out of the house, sell the big house Get a smaller one, downsize. Don't make your life so complicated. You know, get rid of a lot of the material possessions that don't really matter to you anymore. Maybe you're holding on to them because you want to show off to other people or whatever, you know, or you want to be too luxurious, to make the life simple, more simple. So basically, a better word for lay people is simplification, because renunciation, most people think it means becoming a monk or a nun. Now, it does that at a higher level, but not really for lay people. They have to renounce little by little. That means giving up, like giving up 5 cups of coffee a day and maybe just drinking 2, or giving up 3 spoonfuls of sugar in your coffee and taking only 1. So basically, it means learning how to release some of this tight craving and grasping for things. So that's how you apply that for lay people. Why is there still effort required once you attain Sotapanna if you inevitably attain deliverance in 7 lives? Well, you want to be reborn for 6 more lifetimes and have to suffer on account of that? So that's why. So attaining a Sotapanna doesn't deliver you from your bad karma from the past. You'll still reap the effects of your bad karma. And you could still be reborn, maybe not in a lower hell or animal world, but you could be reborn again as a human being in not such perfect conditions and having to undergo old age, sickness, and death also for another 6 lifetimes. If you want to do that, fine and dandy. But so that's why the effort is still required. So that's why they're called the disciples in the higher training. They're still training. Even the Sotapannas, the once returners, the never returners, they're still training because they still have those higher fetters to overcome. So they haven't reached the real right deliverance. So the Buddha didn't even recommend anybody just to be satisfied with being a once returner or satisfied with being a never returner, but he, you know, knowing that, of course, you know, people have certain karmic limitations and may not be able to attain all those stages quickly. But anyway, so the right effort is required until finally one reaches that the stage of the Arahant or full enlightenment. So even the supramundane path still requires the effort, but a supramundane effort. That means it has that effort that's bolstered by having weakened the defilement. So it's much easier to practice right effort and right mindfulness and concentration because you've weakened those defilements that had previously prevented you from practicing. This other question is about transcendental dependent origination, and that's a whole nother talk in itself. You know, and it seems to reverse the 11th. And anyway, it's I'm not going to go into that now. It's too complicated to try to explain now. But sometimes, you know, when you read different sutras and you read different interpretations of sutras, it may seem like certain things the Buddha had said at one point were different than they appear and so on, but it takes a great deal of study and understanding to understand what some of those differences are. Says Bhante, in yoga, in the stage of samadhi, the meditator merged with the object. In Buddhism, we don't talk about object at this stage, only about unification of mind. Can you explain Well, in yoga, as far as my understanding is, samadhi, the term samadhi in yoga is often applied to, or Maha-samadhi. That's, Maha-samadhi in yoga is considered to be moksha or liberation from samsara. But in Buddhism, the samadhi only refers to the jhanas, and it doesn't refer to any kind of liberation of samsara. So this is the confusion where the terms samadhi in yoga mean one thing, and samadhi in the Eightfold Path means another thing. And samadhi in the Buddhist path is not the end, but it goes on to the nibbana, which is not samadhi in the Buddhist definition. But reaching samadhi is a requisite for attaining the liberation, but it's not liberation itself. In unification of mind, basically, it's where all the mental factors and so on have become balanced and harmonized, and it's resting in that the pure present moment awareness, that's beyond the thoughts and so on, and is balanced with equanimity and so on, and has lucidity of wisdom. Anyway, again, these are difficult to understand. Only when you actually meditated and reached the higher levels will you, hopefully you will understand the differences in some of those things. After achieving the Sotapanna stage, how do you know about this status in following lives? Well, again, that would require more explanation and so on than I care to get into right now. You said right understanding has 3 levels: intellectual, then the level of reflection, and then the third one is the bhavanamaya panya, or the deep insights. And that means the insights into anicca, dukkha, and anatta that allow you to realize the stages of enlightenment. So it would be the deep insights into anicca, dukkha, and especially anatta. So when you meditate and you get these glimpses where the sense of self is kind of vanished or nearly vanished, this is deep insight into the nature of the emptiness of the ego, that the ego is an illusion. Before, you might have had doubts about it because it seems so real, and the mind is dominated by thoughts of I, me, and mine. But when you actually see these thoughts of I, me, and mine dissolve and experience these few moments of crystal clear awareness without any sense of me or I or other or subject-object dualism, that is this kind of bhavanamaya panya, deep insight that allows you to attain those levels of, that we mentioned, entering the stream and so on. So the bhavanamaya panya, sutramaya panya, chintamaya panya, and bhavanamaya panya. These are the 3 levels of insight. And the arhat has that bhavanamaya panya. That's the supramundane Eightfold Path, is because that person has reached the bhavanamaya panya, even in attaining sotapanna. That is the beginning of the deep bhavanamaya panya when you reach the sotapanna stage. Okay, friends, I think that's the end of the questions. So those are good questions. And again, it requires a lot of reading and and reflecting. So even when you meditate, even in tonight's meditation, you could spend a whole meditation just thinking about the Eightfold Path. What is wrong view? What is right view? So you're using your intellectual understanding in reflection. So in meditation, especially in Vipassana meditation and in mindfulness meditation, the four foundations of mindfulness is not just silencing your thoughts and not thinking. It involves this level of what is called the Dhamma Vichaya, or investigation of Dhamma. It involves the Chintamaya Panya. So you can think about, just kind of ponder what you've learned. Okay, what is wrong view? What is wrong speech, wrong action? And then what is right action, right speech? And going over those, even to ponder them in your mind. You could spend a whole an hour thinking about them, and you could gain a very deep state of concentration. You could gain a state of access concentration even by that. So, because that's the applied and sustained thought, you're developing that, but you're thinking about a certain topic. It's not scatterbrain thinking. You're thinking along the terms of the Dhamma. So, in this meditation that we're even going to do now, we can try to apply some of that. Okay, so we're going to have a short break now, a few minutes. If you need to use the restroom, or those who are living in Europe or some other places where it's very late at night, of course, you can feel free to end your meeting and take your rest. And thank you for joining us. And try to join us again next week. Next week we're going to be covering some suttas from the Samyutta Nikaya, and especially the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, and try to speak more about the five aggregates. I gave a Dhamma talk on the five aggregates, a couple of weeks ago, and I want to kind of continue and add some things to that and understanding the five aggregates, because that's really the whole focus of mindfulness and Vipassana meditation is understanding how these, how it's being delivered. Deliverance means being delivered from the suffering caused by the addiction to the five aggregates and the wrong view of the five aggregates. Anyway, so go ahead and take a break in a few minutes, come back, and we'll do a few stretches and then sit for meditation for those who like. Okay? So just try to sit keeping your back and head in a kind of a straight line. Try not to lean back against a wall or even the seat back of your chair. If you can, sit up on the front edge of your chair. Gently close your eyes. And just feel the weight of the body pressing the seat. Try to feel or imagine that 100 or more pounds of body pressing the seat, buttocks and feet. And feel your hands and fingers touching. Try to feel some subtle pulsation, sensation in your fingers, where they touch together. And gently straighten up. Lift the spinal column and back upwards. Imagine some space between the spinal vertebrae, so the blood and life force Electrical energy can freely circulate through the nervous system. And feel the head balanced on top of the neck, like balancing a soccer ball on top of a broomstick. Try to keep the chin level, parallel with the floor. And then feel your face, and feel some different sensations on your face, like where the lips touch together, or the skin stretched over the face. Relax the face muscles. And feel the eyes resting in the sockets and the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. From that point behind the eyes, just let the awareness kind of open up and try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Just the general sense of the buttocks and feet underneath, the arms at the sides. Clothing touching the skin of the chest, the shoulders, the arms. And the head balanced on top. Just try to hold that feeling of the sitting body in the mind's eye. And just remind yourself, sitting, sitting, sitting. The present moment of the body. And then begin to take a few deep, slow breaths as you were doing in the yoga exercise. Try to fill up expand the abdomen, rib cage and upper chest. As you're breathing in, hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds to allow the oxygen to get into the bloodstream. And with the out breath, feel that relaxing contractions of the out breath, that pleasant sensation, the contracting out breath, following the air down to the bottom. Last bit of air go out of the lungs. And then the next in breath. Just continue to take several deep, slow breaths again. Just thinking like this to yourself. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Now let's try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to develop a more precise concentration, mindfulness and concentration. So still keep your attention focused in the middle of the body to feel the expanding and contracting sensations. Try to take some, continue to take some deeper, slower breaths to feel it easy. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. And with the contracting out breath, also count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Expanding in breath, 3. Contracting out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath, 10. Now discontinue the counting. Discontinue any controlling the breath. Let the breathing return to its own uncontrolled rhythm. But continue to feel it, to follow it with mindfulness, to feel the residual expanding and contracting sensations of the abdomen, stomach, or rib cage, or chest. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. And knowing is the alert mindfulness. You know it by feeling the sensation. Try to feel the subtle sensations of the clothing rubbing against the skin of the stomach, or rib cage, or chest, as it expands or contracts. That's what you're actually feeling. You can just mentally remember like this. The breath is coming in. When the breath is going out, out. And during the brief pauses between the breaths, just try to feel the outline of the sitting posture, to remember that the body is sitting. So just in, sitting, out, sitting. Or breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just remember that much. It's not much to remember. In, sitting. Out, sitting. It's the ongoing connection to the present moment of this breathing body. The first stage of mindful concentration. Mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of the sitting posture. In, sitting. Out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. It's important to notice the brief pauses between the breaths. The pauses connect each breath to the next one. There's the expanding in breath and the pause. And the contracting out breath and the pause. In, sitting. Out, sitting. Just finding the door of the laboratory. Sitting body is like finding the door of the laboratory. As you focus inside on the sensations of breathing, it's like opening the door of the laboratory, gradually going inside. Feel those 4 phases of the breathing process. The in breathing and the pause. The out breathing and the pause. So many different little sensations of expanding and contracting. The more sensations you can notice, it's like turning up the power of the mental microscope. Looking down through the microscope into the body. Try to notice how each breath is different. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's shorter. Sometimes the in-breath is longer than the out-breath. The out-breath is longer than the in-breath. It's part of the Chintamaya Panya, or the reflective wisdom. Knowing that this body lives by breathing. The breath is impermanent, always changing. The in-breath comes and goes. The pause comes and goes. The out-breath comes and goes. And contemplate that impermanence of the breathing process. And all those little sensations coming and going. 3 or 4 more expanding sensations arise and vanish. 2, 3, or 4 contracting sensations arise and vanish. And turning up the power of the mental microscope. Cultivating the perception of impermanence. Even while you're observing the breathing, you might notice other sensations coming and going, prickling sensations, sensations of the clothes rubbing on the skin, or any other sounds in the body may come and go. At the same time, you might notice thoughts coming and going in the back of the mind, or some urge arising in the mind, urge to move, urge to think about something. Mindfully observing those urges, the effort to abandon the urge, the effort to stay with the breathing, not get lost in your thoughts. That's the right effort. and right mindfulness. If you catch yourself lost in thoughts, recognizing it as lost. The right view, the mind is lost. The effort to let go of those thoughts. Mindfulness notices the thoughts, the effort to let go of it, the effort to return to the breathing. Mindfully noticing thoughts arise, the right view, understanding, is this a thought of sensual pleasure, a thought of ill will, thought of cruelty, and the effort to abandon it, the wrong thoughts, to cultivate the right thoughts, letting go of friendliness, of compassion. Always coming back to the breathing body. If you have too many thoughts, you can go back to counting the breaths from 1 to 10. To take some deep, slow breaths to help keep the mind grounded in the body, in the present moment. If you're feeling sleepy, do some deep, slow breathing. Recharge the bloodstream with oxygen. The right effort to overcome sleepiness, to enter into wakefulness. Be alert when any unpleasant or painful sensations arise. Noting it with mindfulness. The effort to relax around it, not to move. Mindfully relaxing, allowing those sensations just to move around, eventually change or dissipate or disappear. Staying centered in the breathing body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just try to notice and feel subtler, finer sensations in the body, or subtler thoughts or urges moving through the mind. Trying to come up and take your attention away. Just mindfully intercepting the thoughts, the effort to let them go. The effort to come back to the breathing body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Thoughts come and go. Urges come and go. Pleasure and pain come and go. Sounds come and go. Sleepiness comes and goes. These are all just a continuous flow of change and impermanence through this body and mind. But the body keeps sitting and breathing, sitting and breathing. The breathing body is our only real connection to the present moment. It's the only thing that we always have with us. Everything else comes and goes without our control. This breathing body, from the moment of birth to the moment of death, is always there just beneath our nose. It's available to feel. It's our lifeline, our life preserver to the present moment. We lose that connection to the breathing body, to the present moment, and this mind gets easily pulled beneath the waves of neurotic thinking, worry, fear, anxiety, greed, hatred, and deluded thought, and all the suffering that comes with it. That connection to the breathing body helps keep the mind floating on the waves of impermanence, floating from moment to moment without sinking beneath the waves. This is meditation. Mindfulness meditation, first stage, in cultivating the right view. All things are impermanent. Form, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Continually changing. Okay, now we want to spend the last few minutes of the meditation period cultivating the right thought of friendliness towards others, overcome or drive out any ill will. We cultivate metta, understanding wrong thought or ill will is wrong, and metta, non-ill will, is right thought. Again, take a few deep, slow breaths. And after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs for as long as you comfortably can to feel that subtle life force or oxygenated blood cruising out to all the cells and tissues of the body, mind, nervous system, saturating them with pure organic life force. On the out breath, feel that relaxing, kind of healing vibration of that relaxing out breath. Relaxing into the present moment. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, thinking like this to yourself. May I be well, peaceful, mindful, and wise. May I be free from anxiety, fear, restlessness, greed, hatred, and delusion. May I be able to cultivate the right view and all the other factors of the Eightfold Path to help to abolish the wrong views, the wrong speech, wrong actions. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to deepen my understanding of the Dhamma, to transition from the mundane Eightfold Path to the supramundane Eightfold Path by developing insight, by developing mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And also sending these thoughts out towards your family members and to all other beings. Again, if you can, continue to take a few deep, slow breaths. And with each out breath, just imagine these waves of metta thoughts of friendliness, best wishes. As these thoughts go outward, these thought vibrations out across the valleys, fields, towns and cities, sending these metta thoughts to your family members or relatives or friends, if any of them are sick. Just with each out breath, just imagine these waves of friendliness and best wishes spreading out across the whole earth. Just with the idea that may all living beings, wherever they might be, living far or near, visible or invisible, weak or strong, may all living beings be well, peaceful, mindful, and wise. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to cultivate the right views in the Eightfold Path. May all beings continue to deepen their understanding of the Dhamma. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, cultivating the right view, the right thought. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Just like a mantra reverberating throughout space. Well, peaceful, and wise. Dukkha pata chani dukkha bhaya pata chani bhaya soka pata chani soka hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha, the awakened. Now you can mindfully place your hands at the edge of your knees. And on a deep, slow breath, stretch your head back and arch your lower spine, pulling the hands against the knees to help arch backwards a bit. And hold it a few moments. Feel the sensation. And mindfully lift the head up, and on an out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. Then lift the chin up, level, and relax on the out breath. Okay, friends, you'd like to turn your videos on again so I can see all your happy, calm faces. It brings our